Welcome in, everybody. We got a few minutes before we start, so we'll just kind of let the room fill up a little bit more. If anybody has any questions that they want to ask prior to the meeting, the class starting, feel free to just pop in and give us a shot at it. I think it's a fairly small course. I think we had 30 or so participants. We're about halfway there on the actual registrations or the actual sign-ins. So I don't think I think it's all right if anybody wants to jump in with anything.
We're all excited for today.
Excellent. Me too.
With or without technical issues, but we're here.
That's right. Maybe just another minute or two.
I think the hardest part about a presentation is getting rid of all the wiggles.
I read this amazing book called Breathe, and unfortunately off the top of my head it's not in front of me, nor can I remember the author, but it was amazing. I listened to it, and I've actually listened to it twice, and it really talks about that very conscious 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, 5 second hold. It actually works when I remember to do it. So
That's the hard part, remembering.
Yeah. Everybody give me about 2 minutes. I'm going to take a breathing break. Just kidding. Well, we're right at 11. I feel like the logins are pretty good. Got a pretty good crowd here so far. Anybody have any questions that they want to ask? They can feel free to just turn on their microphone or put it in the DM in the chat. If not, then maybe we'll go ahead and get started. Let's see, it looks like we just got one more. Okay, so first off, I want to welcome everybody to Superpowers, how to identify and transfer from classroom to career. We are super excited about this today. So thanks for coming to the STEM Summit. Thanks for joining our class, and hopefully we're going to have a little bit of fun. I think you may have been fair warned with the request for information prior to the class that it's going to be a little bit interactive. So we're really hoping that you can kind of step outside your comfort zone if it's not your norm to participate and answer and ask some questions with us today. If not, we might have to turn on the gallery view and pick on you just like in class. So no, I'm just kidding. So anyways, yeah, thank you for signing up, and we're going to get rolling on this. So I think the big thing is I want to make sure that everybody understands what the take-home pay is, what we're hoping that you get out of this class today. And it's really just to kind of have a fresh set of eyes in identifying and calling out superpowers or soft skills. These soft skills are usually so obvious that they're actually rarely acknowledged. And that's an issue today. What's happening out in the workforce is human resource managers, companies are saying, we are lacking employee applicants with soft skills. And it's kind of that chicken and the egg. I'm trying to figure out, are the soft skills really lacking, or is it a fact that we don't acknowledge them and create ownership of them early enough to, so that the students have any awareness of that. And the truth is that we think identifying them early on, even from kindergarten on through to 12th grade, and letting them get a handle on really something that they own, that is a strength for them, can really only help them and set them up for success throughout school, and then obviously into their future careers. So we're going to dip into some of these different traits that you might see in your classrooms, even some of the ones that maybe have a little bit more of a, kind of a naughty connotation or disruptive connotation. And we're going to try to help you flip those even. Something like talks too much or talks out of turn. This is something I identify with to the bone. When I was in fourth grade, my parents actually received a D-slip from my school saying that Carrie talks too much in class. And while I'm sure my timing wasn't really great, the fact that I have that skill really did help my career. Right out of college, I was in a sales career in the athletic industry. And when you encounter new people and everybody's a friend, and you can communicate with anyone, that's absolutely a solid skill set. We just kind of have to harness it. So again, acknowledging it early and really kind of cultivating that. I think those are some of the skills that are key, and that's really what we want you to take home from today's meeting. Like, how can you identify those in your classroom with your students, and then help them build and take ownership in those. So the team that's going to do that today, I've got the A team. We brought the power in. So just to start off the introductions, Stella Huschkel is with us today. She's from Chemicon Materials, and she's the manager of human resources. If you are watching this on a computer, which of course you are, if you've got a phone in your pocket, pretty sure that that's being powered by parts that come from Chemicon Materials. So it's she told me about it. It's the capacitator, and I'm stumbling because I want to say flux capacitor and start making a joke about the Michael J. Fox Back to the Future movie. So anyways, it's stumbling me in my head. But anyways, Diane Navarro is next in line. She's with WorkSource Wenatchee Valley. She's a community liaison. Maria Maravilla is business services and community engagement. She's with the ESD and also WorkSource Wenatchee Valley. My name is Carrie Horning. I am the Career Connected Learning Specialist with the NCSD, mainly focused out in the Grant and Adams counties area, but you might see me throughout North Central Washington. So you've been warned. All right, so this next slide is actually the input that was gathered from the link that I sent to everybody. That email may have or may not have ended up in your junk folder, but I did send out an email with a link saying, hey, tell us a little bit about what you think are some identifiable soft skills in the classroom that you encounter with your students. And you can see from this word cloud, what really stands out front and center, which is perfect because this is in general in life, communication is a very important skill for everybody at every level. But then also creativity and problem solving also stand out. A deeper look, if you kind of take a peek in some of the smaller words, we've got honesty, perseverance, trust, and teamwork. These are also key. And these are exactly the skills that employers are looking for, that they seem to believe that many applicants are lacking. And I say seem to believe because, again, I feel like it's that chicken or the egg. Are they actually lacking in these skills? Or is it just a fact that we haven't taken the time to really encourage them and call them out? And so for the fact that every single employer that I work with through Career Connected Learning has said soft skills, soft skills, soft skills, they're even to the point where they're telling us, listen, we can train the hard skills. We really need somebody with soft skills. We need somebody who can communicate. We need somebody who can show up on time and consistently. So again, we're just going to acknowledge these and truly try to get a command of this, so that when you're working on, grading an assignment for a student, maybe you're looking beyond actually what that assignment, what that assignment is actually, what you're grading on, what the subject matter was, but also did they turn it in on time? That's punctuality, things like that. So with this, since we weren't able to get everybody's feedback, I'd like to take a little bit of time right now for some audience participation. So if you want to have a little bit of fun, go ahead and raise the Zoom hand, or you can send a chat. And you can just turn on your microphone if you're willing to kind of engage with me. But I want to ask a few questions about superpowers. Anybody out there willing to banter back and forth with me? Come on, I know some of you.
Carrie, we had Leticia in the chat who said that these superpowers also look like character traits. And then Stella also shared that they can definitely be that, and students also need to understand them. And I also wanted to quickly chime in and share, it's absolutely all of that in the employment world, with where Diane and I kind of our focus is with assisting our job seekers and our employers. It's often referred to as soft skills. You will hear different terminology for it, but yes, it's absolutely character traits, and it is something very important that our students need to get familiar with very early on. So yep, you're right on it, Leticia.
Yeah, thank you. And actually, you know what, this is a great time. I'm gonna, before I get this engagement, trying to get somebody from the audience to participate with me, I'll let you guys build up a little bit of courage. I'm gonna share a little story. So, this Career Connected Learning, we hosted many events back in 2018, 2019, pre-COVID, with the students, and really talking to them about the importance of soft skills. And what happened is, while I was giving the presentation and sharing kind of what I felt like some of my strengths were, I asked the audience. This was a group of high school students, and we were probably, somewhere around the number of 50 or so students in the room. I believe it was an FBLA conference. And I said, who's got a superpower? Somebody out there tell me what your superpower is. What's one of your strongest soft skills? And nobody would answer. And whether it was a matter of being perceived as, arrogant or cocky, overconfident, or if they were just shy, nobody wanted to answer that. So just kind of off the cuff, I actually said, hey, who out there knows Stella? And a few of the students raised their hands, and I said, well, what's her superpower? What's she really good at? And in that moment, what happened were students that didn't even know that person very well were able to stand up and say, oh, she's hilarious. She makes me laugh. She's super good at math. And what happened in that room, I'm telling the story because it still sticks with me today. But what happened in that room was a student somewhere between the age of 15 and 17, maybe 18, was able to hear their peers talk about them in a way that, maybe we're not used to talking about. How often do you just go up and tell one of your buddies, hey, you're really good at math and I admire that, or, you make me smile, thanks for doing that. So it was really kind of a good moment. I'm actually getting goosebumps as I'm telling the story. And that's really kind of the genesis of this entire conversation. And that's why everyone's willing to kind of play this game with me and talk a little bit about their superpowers. Don't make me call on you specifically. Anybody interested? Let's see. Bridget, it looks like is multi. See, could I get one of my? Oh, hello. Was that you, Bridget? No. Did somebody else jump on?
I was encouraging our attendees not to be shy, Carrie.
Oh, okay, awesome. Thank you. All right. Are you guys, is anybody actually out there listening? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, let's see. Okay, so Bridget.
Okay, I'll be the guinea pig.
Right on. Who do we have here? Sean?
Yes.
Sean Ingram, thank you for saving me. I felt like a comedian on stage that was starting to really choke. So, all right. So, Sean, welcome to Superpowers. Thank you for participating with us. So, tell me a little bit about what's your superpower.
Oh, I would probably say patience is one of my big superpowers as a teacher. Yes, patience and just that'd be the biggest one. Listening.
Awesome. I like that. So, at what point did you realize that this was your superpower and come to really kind of own it?
Oh, just when other students would just tell me that, man, you take your time with me. You don't get upset. You don't roll your eyes when I don't know an answer. They just kind of just let me know that they appreciate when I take the time and just willing to listen and walk them through a process. So
awesome. And so, Sean, I should have asked, where do you teach?
I teach at Okanagan High School. I'm a high school math teacher. Yeah.
Awesome. Lucky kids. I love it. All right. So tell me this. Had you identified that superpower sooner in your life or your school career, college career, do you think it would have been beneficial, and in what way?
If I had to identify that I was a patient person, oh, probably just not being so uptight when people annoy me, I guess, would be the biggest thing. Learning to maybe, especially with my brother growing up, would have been nice to have more patience with him.
Yeah, excellent. I can identify with that as well. I have 2 older brothers, and yeah, patience would have been key back then. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. All right. I appreciate it. We didn't mean to put you on the spot, but yeah. Anybody else want to join in and share a little bit about what they think their superpower is?
Hey, Carrie, this is Gabby Fernandez. How you doing?
Gabby, how are you?
So my superpower, I'm fine. My superpower is I have no fear speaking in public. I can just, straightforward communicate in public, but I cannot dance or do theater at all.
Awesome.
And also my other superpower that my mom is recognizing nowadays is that I can chop onions without crying.
Hey, that's pretty good. So, Gabby, when did you realize you could, public speak without the nerves that most of us get?
Well, when I was like 18, I had the opportunity to deliver one of the speeches during graduation, and one of my teachers was 100% behind me. Actually, he was standing behind me just in case I forgot something, but he told me before I came out, he said something in the words in Spanish, es tuyo, tú puedes, it's yours, you can do it. And I just stood up there and I spoke like from my heart, taking, looking at the notes now and then, and I just delivered completely. So that's when I decided to volunteer at church to be a lecturer, and, got all this experience of speaking in public, which I really enjoyed. So
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome,
I know it's made a difference because we've worked on a couple projects, and yep, you're pretty incredible. So yeah,
thank you, friend.
For sharing that. So awesome. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and move on. I appreciate the input there. That's not the last time I'm going to be asking. So everybody else, kind of get yourselves ready, and we'll see if we can't do this again. So let's talk superpowers. Since you shared with us, we're also going to share a little bit with you. I've called them superpowers. I'm going to jump into chat again. Letitia said characteristic traits, soft skills. Basically, these are just critical. Whoops, hang on a second. Got to go back. There we go. These are critical strengths and talents, qualities, and personal attributes that help you succeed and outperform. I've also heard them called transferable skills. But let me share a little bit about ours. So me personally, this was not something we talked about, when I was a kid or when I was in school. So this is kind of new to my whole career connected learning world, but I think what stands out most for me right now as a superpower is getting people to do things they don't yet know they want to do. Our family had a fundraising guild for Seattle Children's Hospital here in our little hometown, and a lot of people in our community ended up volunteering, donating, participating in ways I think they never had dreamed of. until, you put it out there and you ask them to do something. And I don't really know that it's much of a superpower, but having, really that ability to kind of ask for what you need, I think that's a superpower. One of the biggest successes I had with that is another career connected learning story. We were doing a presentation for some students at an industry partners location out in Moses Lake. And we needed to feed lunch to all these students. They were going to be there for a soft skills presentation, a tour. It was kind of an all-day event. And I don't know if you guys are familiar, anybody's familiar with Moses Lake, but Chico's Pizza is a little bit famous and fabulous. And I just reached out to Chico's and I said, listen, we've got this amazing event happening for some amazing students, and we'd really love to have some Chico's Pizza for lunch. Would you consider opening up early, making 30 pizzas? And, oh yeah, I need you to deliver them. And without hesitation, they absolutely made it happen. But the funny thing is throughout the entire event, I kept kind of bragging like, hey, we're getting Chico's Pizzas. They're going to deliver for lunch today. Everybody was saying, you're not getting Chico's Pizzas. First of all, they're not open. Second of all, they don't deliver. I said, no, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I maybe had a little bit of fear that something might go wrong. But in the end, Chico's delivered on time and everybody was pretty stoked about it. And so that's when I kind of felt like, oh yeah, I can get people to do things they don't yet know they want to do. So hats off to Chico's Pizza, and hats off to, being willing to ask for what you need. So I'm going to introduce Stella. Stella's going to talk here a little bit about what her superpower is. But before she does, I'd actually like to share what I think one of her superpowers is. I've had a working relationship and friendship with Stella since 2018 when I started Career Connected Learning. And I think Stella's superpower is her positive attitude. I have never, ever not seen her with a smile on her face and saying, yep, I can do that. Yep, I'll get involved. Yep, where do you need me? Yep, what can I do? And there's not a lot of that out there, especially when we're in these, kind of crazy times. So hats off to Stella for that and all that she does and gives back to Career Connected Learning, participating today. But that's what I think is one of her superpowers. Stella, what do you think? What do you got for us?
Thanks, Carrie. That's, it's funny. My husband says that too. Yeah, the smile, and that's what hooked him.
Yeah, awesome.
All single ladies, smile.
Yeah, I love it.
So my superpower is that I can get two extremely angry people to calm down and talk it out. I'm HR and I'm not tall. I'm 5'5", just average height. And the men that work with me are not average height. A lot of these guys are 6 foot something and big. And I can stand in between the two of them, calm them down. I mean, they're like having a shouting match. I can talk to them, calm them down, and get them back out to work as a team. Sometimes it's a challenge, but it can be done. And that's something I didn't know I had at first, until I think children taught me that. And I will tell you that Carrie's superpower to talk people into things, I was one of the people who said Chico's wasn't going to come to our deal. I was convinced they wouldn't do it. And the pizzas were good. And I took Tom's afterwards. Everything was grand. But I will tell you, I think Carrie's superpower, and I think you'll see this throughout this entire presentation, is that she can give out information and she makes it relatable. She is just super friendly. And as she discusses it, you feel like you're just sitting down with your best friend and having a cup of coffee or whatever and just enjoying it. She is just fantastic that way.
Thank you, Stella.
You're welcome. Diane, what's your superpower?
Thank you, Stella. I
You're
would like to
welcome.
add, I know I just want to add this to elaborate on what you said. Anytime that I work with Carrie, I think Carrie has this. I'm going to participate, but Carrie's going to finish it regardless of what I do. Thank you guys. My superpower, and I think it's listed in there in one word, but I'm social, or I love to talk. I do not like silence. Anytime that I am in a silent room, I will talk. And oftentimes I find that people that don't like to talk, and this might be a little more of a superpower is I don't know if I get happy by making them uncomfortable by talking more, but I love to talk. And when I was in school, I got to know the office staff pretty well because I was always in detention for talking. Now, how that has helped me in my professional world is I have had a chance to work with a lot of people. I've worked with people in rehab, and talking to them, it has actually helped them feel comfortable in their rehab. In sales, I've gotten sales without even going to look for the sale, just talking because I wanted to just talk and get to know people. And I've gotten the sale from talking, and I've built so many relationships by just talking. And so I would say that my superpower is being social. I can talk to anybody. Um, I'm going to introduce Maria, and she is Maria Maravilla, who also works with me. And before she begins to share with us her superpower, I'd like to share what I see as her superpower. Maria's superpower, from my point of view, is she is very organized. You can ask anyone in our office to describe Maria's cubicle, and they will tell you exactly what it looks like. Everything is so detailed, everything is so organized. Every project that we do, that we work on together, is very detailed. That is something that I value when working with her because all of our projects are very detail oriented. Any of the flyers that you look at, you can inspect everything that she does, and it is to the T. Everything is very organized. So with that being said, I'd like to hear what Maria has for her superpower.
Thank you, Diane. That's very kind of you. And also just quickly show my face and say hi to everybody. I want to say thank you first. That's very kind of you. And I do feel like organization helps us all a little bit. It's not always as great as I would like it to be, but I take pride in that and I appreciate you for acknowledging that. And to share my superpower, I think that one of the superpowers that I default to quite a bit is being a critical thinker. I have been one of the individuals in life where even as a young child or young adult, I've always been sometimes a bit reserved. So I'm the quiet one. I'll be quiet. I'm processing. So I may not be speaking out loud, whether it's in meetings or even in a social setting. Sometimes I'm not immediately sharing what's on my mind, but I'm processing. The wheels are turning and I'm kind of considering all the different information that individuals are sharing and then kind of seeing what areas have gaps and kind of identifying next steps. So I really feel like that helps me with my personality and my style and in my area of work. And I think that because I enjoy being a critical thinker as well, I kind of had a passion and a drive to go into learning a little bit about lean. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with the lean management system, kind of to eliminate waste and find ways to improve processes within our work. And so I'm a proponent of lean, a lean lover, I call myself also. And I think that's come in quite a bit handy in my work with WorkSource and the Employment Security Department. And I think more specifically when it comes to the job that I have right now, working as our business services representative, I work directly with our employers. So we assist them in trying to meet their hiring needs to find candidates for them. And as you all know, the pandemic has really put a damper on things. It's very difficult right now. The jobs are out there, everyone's hiring, but the candidates are not there. So I think because of this situation, it allowed me to think a little bit deeper. And first of all, I had to accept that this can't be resolved. You know, the pandemic, it is what it is, but the service that I provide to my employers, it kind of allowed me to take a step back, acknowledge that, yes, I feel a bit frustrated, but also maybe there's different levels of service, different ways of providing service now that we're in this pandemic so that I can kind of engage with them, provide assistance one-on-one, not worry about solving every single employment need immediately, but connect with the individuals that I am assisting in the moment and offer different ways of serving them. And that for me has meant connecting directly with Diane, working together so that we can actually create pipelines for our employers, bringing our colleagues together, exchanging information so that we can kind of share, hey, I'm working with this employer, what candidates do you have? And, you know, helping them a little bit more with marketing, creating banners for them in the office and whatnot. So again, I feel like being a critical thinker it might also be attached to a little bit of my OCD, but it really helps me process and get things done. So it's something I enjoy. And I think I'll hand it off to Carrie now.
Yeah, that is terrific, Maria. Thanks for sharing that. And really, again, everything that we're sharing ties right into what we're talking about in terms of, letting, acknowledging and really lifting these skills up in our students so that then they can carry it into the workplace. So that's terrific. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so moving on. We're going to keep that word cloud in mind with your feedback, everybody who's participating. So you can see everything right there. But what we really want to do now is I'm going to end up handing it back over to Diane and Maria. And we're going to talk about turning these attributes into skills. And then also putting it into practice. Again, they are with the ESD and the WorkSource. They're helping students and adults find jobs and careers right now. So I think this is a perfect segue to kind of get less of an education side of it, but more of an application side of it from professionals. And at the same time, Stella's going to give her input from exactly that, the professional standpoint, since she's in HR. So take it away, gals. Have at it.
Thank you, Carrie. Yep, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Carrie. And I'd like to say, as you guys saw, the example revealed that while we acknowledge some of our skills, sometimes we do miss a few of them. But fortunately, we have people around us that they're watching them because they are very apparent, right? We generally like to think of skills as positive attributes of a person, and generally the most challenging ones are overlooked or disregarded. But what if we looked at those challenging attributes as useful skills in certain settings or different points in individuals' career or their life? That is how you can assist your students in identifying attributes and turning them into skills that they can use throughout their school years, but also later in adulthood. And this is a concept that we can observe in every day, whether it be a student's life or a person in general. One example comes to mind is my mom. Whenever we go anywhere, the store, the bank, anywhere, she befriends any stranger. Any person that she interacts, she will be like gum on a wall. She starts talking to them and gets to know them. But when I think about it in a professional setting, she has no problem making new connections or working with various groups. Your students get to spend a lot of time in school with you, and you're going to have the opportunity to see a lot of these attributes either reflected either in their work, in their interactions with others. When they get in trouble, how do they react? How do they respond? How do they cope with it? When they play or just being themselves. I mean, there's a lot of examples that I can recall from when I was younger. One of them, I don't know where it is where you guys are, but when I went to Ephrata High School, and we had what was called junior joggers. And there was several times where students would race to eat their lunch so they could go out and run and get as many tickets as they wanted to. They had that motivation to get their junior jogger t-shirt. And so thinking back about these moments, I started thinking about these people that had that where they wouldn't eat to go run. I mean, it was to the point where teachers had this little circle that said go or stop, so that they could make sure that kids ate before they went out. And so I started thinking of these students that had that motivation to get their t-shirt, and look at where they're at now. So those are some of the things that we want to reinforce. There's many assessments, self-assessments that can assist an individual in identifying their skills. But when we look at these assessments, most of them are a series of questions about either your interests or actions, such as how would you react to a specific circumstance. And for students, a lot of the times they won't have this experience, or they won't they won't know how to react in these situations. So it can be really challenging for an assessment or a self-assessment to accurately identify a skill. Even as an adult, right? When we take these self-assessments, we tend to answer questions how we think we would react, but we know that that's not always the case. Sometimes we'll react a lot differently, and that's okay. So what's a better way to identify these skills or these superpowers than through observing an everyday life activity, right? And what I'm referring to is observing your students for attributes and coaching them to own them. And what I mean by this is, for example, having a student who is too energetic. This can be translated into having a student who's motivated and could work in a fast-paced environment. Someone who's talkative in class. This can be translated to being social or potentially a great communicator. Someone who's quiet, like Maria said, they might just be observant or being a critical thinker. Someone who likes to help a lot and who's always wanting to participate in everything. They're a great collaborator, right? Asking questions, someone who asks a lot of questions or is inquisitive, that could be active listening. When you talk to someone, you tend to ask a lot of questions so you can learn about them. Having, as Maria mentioned, being OCD, can be translated to being organized, detail oriented, which is two things that I see a lot in job postings. They want someone to be organized and detail oriented. Sensitive or emotional can be empathetic, and there's a lot of careers that will seek that empathy for a lot of employees. Someone who always has a response when you talk to them. You get someone in trouble and they always have a response. They always want to argue it. They might be a good fit for someone. They might have really good debating skills, right? Maybe they can be in a debate for presidents next sometime in their election, or they'd be a good lawyer. In my profession, I encounter a lot of this all the time. I get job seekers needing help with their resume, and the first thing they do is they list all of their technical skills. And usually they'll leave a lot of their soft skills or their transferable skills or personal attributes to the end, if they even include them. And maybe this is because they don't feel that they're important to include them, or maybe they don't know that they have them. And that's when I interject and I say, just based on the experience that we've had in that short time, I say, you came into this office saying hi to everybody, asking them how their day is going, having a little short conversation with them, and you're very comfortable chatting my ear off. And you mentioned all the interactions that you work with all the interactions that you've had in other organizations or in your previous jobs on a regular basis. So I would say that you have what you have are social skills. And it's not until that point where they say, oh yeah, I do have that skill. I never thought about it that way. So we need to think about attributes in the long term, not just how they're presented or viewed in the present. Like I said, I knew I was talkative when I was younger and I couldn't help it. But in projects, I was usually the speaker of the group. But if I had embedded in my head that talking was bad, I would probably not be as comfortable as I am today talking to you guys. So I want to open it up to you guys, and I have a question that I'd like to ask. What I want to hear is, has anyone here encountered a previous student and actually seen this play out for them as an adult? So have you had a student that maybe you remember sending them to the office a lot when they were in your class, but now you're seeing them doing all these stuff with the community? That's just an example, but I'd like to hear about it. Does anyone want to share an example of that?
Okay, I'll think of, I thought of something.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, my superpower was multitasking and detail oriented. So I'm just like all over the place, but no, we're moving my daughter in. So I had a student who was very kind of bossy and talkative. And so we translated that kind of into her leadership skills and social skills, but she is moving on to economics and international policy. And I just think it just fits her to a T. So I just think that those things are going to help her.
Oh, definitely. That's a great example. I mean, the bossy, and I think that's going to be a great fit for her, especially going into global economics.
Yeah, well,
Carrie,
bossy was the negative word, but yeah, leadership skills.
Yeah.
So Bridget, when did you work with her and how old is she now?
Okay, so I worked with her in 8th grade when she was an 8th grader, and she just graduated, and she herself is actually headed off to college this fall to start schooling for all of that.
That's awesome.
So
I have a follow-up question for you, Bridget. Did she recognize that she was bossy, and did you ever point it out and say your attitude can be used in leadership skills?
So I think I can answer that. I helped her recognize when she needed to, she wrote me a senior thank you card. And one of the things was, you taught me how to step up and use my leadership skills, or when it was too much and I needed to take a step back. So she actually told me that I actually helped her kind of navigate those skills, which was, brought on the waterworks. But yeah, so it was just nice to see that some of those soft skills that we do focus on, like it played out, you know, 5 years later.
Mhm.
It was really cool.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about. That's what we want to. We want to hear all these success stories of exactly that example that you provided. That is awesome. If you ever get a chance to follow up with her, it'd be nice to hear now and to see what's going on. So thank you for sharing that.
You're
I
welcome.
believe that we all have those interactions and that we all notice attributes, whether they're challenging or not. Now we just need to assist students and or any other individual to identify it themselves and own it as a positive and useful superpower. And just like Superman learned he could fly, and then he practiced to master it. That's what we would like to do with students, right? So I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Maria now, who's going to talk to us a little bit how we can use it to or put it into practice. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you, Diane, and thank you, Bridget, for sharing also. That was such a great story to hear. And thank you, Diane, for outlining all that information. I think that you did such a wonderful job in kind of really emphasizing how important it is to help our youth and our students see these characteristics, these attributes, and essentially their superpowers in themselves so that they can put them to use later. And I think you did such a great job in outlining how simple it is, too, to just take a quick moment to actually acknowledge that in our students. And like Bridget said, you know, she could have continued to allow this student to possibly be labeled as bossy, but they turned the ship around and found a way to really hone in on her skill set there. So I think that was wonderful. And so now we want to talk a little bit about putting it into practice. So as we're thinking about how we can actually put this into practice and identify attributes in our students, we might ask ourselves, well, how can we do this? Well, we can start by looking for key characteristics within each student, just like, again, going back to what Bridget shared. And in any classroom assignment that you offer, it's always going to have those identifiable either career-ready superpowers or soft skills. And we can look for these in each one of your students. And for example, we have some points here on the screen. If you can look at creativity in a student, and you can do this by looking at how descriptive their assignment was. You can tell what kind of effort they put into the assignment, what energy they invested. Did they actually take their time to complete it, or was it super rushed? So you can kind of identify something really where they're being creative, thinking outside the box, and really diving deep. And then if we look at time, we can also kind of consider time management in this. Are the assignments being turned in on time? If so, that's really good time management. It goes to show that the student is very aware of their time frame, the deadline, in meeting their deadline, the time that they're working with, and it shows that they're able to complete their tasks and their assignments in a timely manner, and they're able to work around that. And that can translate later on when they apply for jobs into great time management skills, which employers always look for, you know, when they're assigning tasks, to ensure that they're able to complete things without a ton of guidance, without being told, and just being able to manage their time on their own. And then we can look at spelling and grammar. This would kind of equate to showing kind of being attentive to detail and their communication skills. Of course, with writing, that would be a great way to show that they're able to communicate very well in a written form, but it also helps their oral communicative skills. And of course, when sharing this information, we know that this is all going to depend on the grade level with different students at different ages. But what we really want to drive home today is that you can truly help your students start to identify their superpowers at a super young age. And I personally feel that the sooner that they start doing this, the better that they're going to get at seeing that in themselves and using it for their own good. And you can help cultivate this in them. Like Carrie said, I love this word. You can actually help cultivate it in them and have their own superpower and their soft skills through their school career. So this is something that if you start super young, they're going to recognize it. They're going to feel comfortable with it. And as they get older, they easily recognize it and they're able to own it. And with our older students, I think the value in this is that, again, if they start young, once they're older, they're going to be able to identify, to package, and to sell themselves, to prepare themselves to enter the workforce. And when we say package, you might be thinking, well, what does package mean? I think Diane and I use this a lot in our jobs, again, because we're in the area of employment, getting everybody a job. When we say package, what we mean by this is that they'll be able to recognize their own superpower and they'll be able to speak to it. They're going to know how to highlight it within targeted resumes, their cover letters, and they're going to, again, be able to describe it and speak to it with confidence in their interviews. They'll be prepared. And I kind of want to take a moment to pause and think, can you imagine those individuals, for example, with Bridget? Can you imagine the student that you assisted, how you helped her kind of identify that superpower with leadership instead of looking at it as being super bossy? Think of her now when she'll be interviewing for her big first job, when she has her university, her college education, or even prior to that. But can you think of her in the interview, how prepared she's going to be and how she's actually going to go into it, having an idea of her skill set and how to speak to it, and having known that it was acknowledged by you. Now compare that to maybe a student that's fresh out of high school or even out of college, but they've not had somebody who sat down and kind of had these conversations with them where they've worked with them either directly or in a group setting or whatnot, but actually shared with them, I see this skill set in you. This can be transferred to this, and this is how you can speak to it and communicate it. So I kind of wanted to frame that because I feel like with interviews, it can be something very daunting, especially the first few interviews that you do. And I know Carrie had mentioned earlier on also in a different discussion how interviews today consist of one person or panel interviews. So they can be pretty scary, you know, when you walk into a room and there's a ton of people there ready to interview you. So I wanted to drive across that the more that you invest in your students to take the time to really pick out those skills, those attributes, and help them see them as superpowers, the more that they're going to be so much more prepared to tackle the workforce, and also be super confident in themselves. And I think that that really helps young individuals become very secure, talented individuals that can speak to themselves and just own it.
Yeah, and
Carrie?
if I may, Maria, that's fabulous information. And I think I want to share another part of the story, to kind of drive that home. The story that I told earlier about the student who was afraid to, or not willing to answer the question about, hey, what's your superpower? But then her peers ended up doing that for her. The one thing that I neglected to mention that was, probably the most powerful was as each of these other friends or peers started to make comments about her and her strengths and her skills, you could see her. I could see it physically. She sat up a little bit straighter. She had a little bit of a smile on her face. Her cheeks totally, she totally was flushed. There was definitely some embarrassment in that. But I think it was in that moment, I reminded her, okay, you're hearing these things from your peers that they're not just things. These are tangible skills. Like, put those in your back pocket and pull them out when you need them for an interview or for a meeting with a coach or a scholarship committee. But there was certainly a physical change in her seat during that presentation as she heard these really nice things being said about her. And I think that just kind of goes to show and really drive home what Maria was saying. The more we can call these out and acknowledge them in the moment, the more ownership that they can have, and really realize the difference between being arrogant or stuck up, however the kids want to label that, in terms really of being confident and with your skills. And that's what we were trying to tell them. Like, when you go in for an interview, you have to be confident. You have to believe you're the best person for that position, and you need to sell it, because Stella's not going to hire you unless you do.
I just love that story, Carrie. And what I really love with this presentation also, because we are addressing this for youth, for our students, is that we're calling this superpowers. And I know, like Leticia had mentioned in the chat earlier, we could call it different things, but I think in calling it superpowers, it really does kind of help kids be a little bit more open-minded and embrace the different attributes that they have in themselves. And similar to Carrie, I have a story from when I was in high school. It was my senior year, and we had just started the school year. I think we were about 3 to 4 weeks into the school year, and I was always the type of student that showed up early. I wanted the front seat, and I asked a ton of questions. I was always very inquisitive, and I asked a lot of questions, and I took very copious notes. And I noticed that during one of the classes one day, my teacher noticed that I kind of felt some sort of way toward the response that I was seeing in the rest of my peers. So at the end of the class, when class was over, she pulled me aside and we talked for a little bit. And she said she sat me down because she wanted me to know that what I was doing and asking questions was not wrong, that I was actually taking leadership and taking the lead and asking the questions that a lot of my peers wanted to know, but maybe they weren't comfortable enough to ask. So she encouraged me to continue to do this. She said, not only is this helpful to others, but it's helping you learn, and it's helping you learn more and take away more than what you would if you had not asked those questions. That was Mrs. Northcutt in my AP English class, and I remember that to this day. And I'm sharing that because I want you guys to know how memorable it is as a young person to hear this from someone when they actually see this in you and they share it with you. It's encouraging, and it helps you embrace it and know that you're supported and that it's not something bad. So I just love that we call this superpowers, and it drives it home for me. And ignore that was my kitten. And so we have a question for you guys. We kind of want to ask you guys, either by show of tiny little hands or tiny little thumbs here in the reactions on Zoom, how many of you guys have actually recognized these attributes in students and in their work and acknowledged it either privately or in a class setting? And Bridget shared one of her stories. We're wondering if you guys kind of want to share, kind of show how many of you guys have done it, or if there's any specific stories you would love to share with us, because that's what we're here for, sharing the discussion. I'm going to scroll through our attendees here to see how many tiny hands I see, because I love the tiny hands. So Bridget's right on it, of course. Is there anyone else who feels like they've had opportunities where they have noticed certain students exemplify some traits that you feel you could definitely approach them, maybe after having this information in this presentation, kind of have those conversations with them and address them as superpowers? Do you guys feel like that's something you'll be able to do with your students?
I saw a few hands up. Donna White, Gabriella, Debbie. I saw a few hands there. If you want to share, feel free.
Yes, please share. Christy, yes.
And I'd like to add that while we are talking a little bit about the skills for the workforce, a lot of these, I like to remember all of my job seekers and just anyone who comes to WorkSource, that for any student, all of this information is very helpful for when they're applying to scholarships, applying to colleges, applying to med school or law school. These are all attributes that are going to build their confidence and allow them to do better in either their school projects and any of the things that I just mentioned.
So we received a message from Tim Payne, and he said, this makes me think about Strength Finder and other inventories and positively, intentionally using them in our classrooms. Interesting, we do this professional worlds. So I might have missed that, but yeah, thank you, Tim, for sharing that. So okay, are we ready, Diane? Maria? Are we ready to move on to the Q&A? I'm sorry, Stella.
I'll go into mine quickly because we're running out of time. So one of my favorite things to say when we're giving tours to students or when I'm bringing people in to tour our facility is that every day is an interview. And it's the same thing in your classrooms. You're with those kids for an hour a day. You get to see where their qualities lie. For instance, I was in trouble for talking. I was a big mouth. I talked all the time. Teacher threatened my mom that they were going to hold me back, but thank goodness my mom was also a talker in school. So she encouraged me to go ahead and use the fact that I was a talker, that it came naturally to me to just go out and meet people. I had a couple of kids, was going crazy in the house, started waitressing, so I could talk to people all the time, right? And then I had an opportunity for a job and I had to use a 10 key. Now, I am not a numbers person, people. I am a talker, not numbers, not detail oriented. And I had to run two runs of numbers and come up with the exact same from this person's inventory. Well, I tried it 4 or 5 different times and I never matched my numbers once, not once. And I laughed about it. And I talked about it to the employer, to this gentleman that was interviewing me, that it's something I would work on, that I knew it wasn't my strength, but I knew I could make it better. And he hired me, not because I was good at a 10 key, but because I had a good attitude, because I joked about it and turned it into something positive. The other person in the office was very detail oriented. She could do numbers in her head and come up with the exact right answer while I was still doing the whole, what? She was phenomenal at it. Together, we made a dynamic team. I could talk to the people about the mistakes that we had made, and I could either, sell it so that they were interested in it, even though it was going to cost them more, or I could give them a better discount because the mistake was totally ours and we can do better because she would be helping me on the number side. So when you guys are talking to your students and you're speaking into them, they are hearing it. And especially when it's something that they have no idea was a strength. I would have never thought my talking was a strength until my mom encouraged me and showed me how she did it. I mean, she rented an apartment once because of the view, and it was the view of another wall, and she sold it. I mean, it's a gift. So you've got to sell these kids into using their giftings. A talkative student totally can become the face of a company. That quiet student might be that person I need to be on the detail-oriented side of things. The one who doodles constantly could become a graphic artist, could be somebody that could come up with our designs, our PowerPoint presentations, for instance. One of the things we do when we're interviewing, we tend to do panel interviews. I will have 2 people from the department that is looking for a new employee, and then I'll be in there. They're looking to see if that person can do the technical, but I'm sitting in there and I'm looking for those soft skills. Do they say they can be there all the time? Do they think that they can handle the job? Can they talk to the other people in the room? Can they make them comfortable as well? Those are huge, important skills that we need. And I know we are running out of time, folks.
You're doing great, Stella. Actually,
Yeah, okay.
I think we've got about maybe 6, 7 minutes.
Okay.
We do have one question, in the chat about time management. How could we really talk about these transferable skills in terms of time management? Do any of my other team have a great answer for that?
I have some tips that have helped me with my time management, and that would be, first of all, start by prioritizing what your projects are. Put them in order of what needs to be absolutely done first. And I can tell you that I am a big procrastinator, so this is something that really has helped me. Is again, prioritize what needs to be done first. Look at the timeline that I have, and identify how much time it's actually going to take me. A useful tool that has really helped me is having a physical calendar and a list. And I think that as I get older, I start procrastinating more and I stop really remembering myself. So making a list of priorities, but also having it on a schedule and knowing myself to know how much time I actually need has helped me. So I don't know if that's something that would help your students, but prioritizing would be my first tip, is learn to prioritize, identify what is the most important thing to do, and then also know yourself and know how much time it typically takes you to do some of these tasks and outline them in a calendar. I see Donna has a hand up. I don't know if that's a question or a comment with this.
That might have been earlier. If not, Stella.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an earlier comment.
Okay.
Going back, I'll just share really fast. I had a student once about 4 or 5 years ago that had no self-confidence in herself. She was very talented, and I teach first grade. She was very talented in drawing and writing stories. And I just pointed that out to her. And, I got to tell you, to this day, she still comes to visit me, and she is still writing cute little stories.
That's awesome.
That's
It really does make
terrific.
a difference.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's
Sure.
terrific. Stella, did you have some input on time management?
Yes. So same problem. I procrastinate. I'm often going to the most exciting thing that's happening next because I get bored real easy. And I've noticed that setting a timer, as a matter of fact, I had my timer going. You can't see it. There you go. I had my timer going. So I knew how long we had to talk. I will set up reminders in my calendar so that I don't forget that I've got to get something done by a certain time, or that I have an appointment. And it's usually with a day or 2 days ahead of schedule so that I don't miss a deadline. It's huge. Losing a deadline at work that can get you losing a job at work too. So yeah, definitely have to think those things over. And students need to understand that time management isn't about just you guys asking them to get a project done. When they get into the workplace, time management becomes crucial.
So I asked that question because we do a lot of like backwards planning, and we try to say, you know, you need X amount of time. Like, what do you need to do? And we try to do backwards planning, but there's always those students, they don't understand what it means to meet a deadline. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like sometimes they can't quite grasp it. And so I don't know if it's just because I work with, you know, 6th to 8th graders, and maybe it's still an emerging skill, and that's, you know, they're getting just the basic fundamentals. But I like the idea of the whole timer, but just the backwards planning. But I was just trying to figure out like how time management is just such a big thing.
So one of the things I would say, Bridget, is that when they go out into the world to actually hold on to that job, the employer is going to expect them to have ABC done by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if it's done at 3:30, it might be too late and somebody else already stepped into that job and took care of it. Or that they've lost that sale, which amounts to money. I mean, everything in the business world comes back to money. And so if they're not able to meet a deadline, it can cost them a job. It could be that by meeting that deadline, they get extra money, like a bonus or a commission. I mean, those are ways that I've explained it with my kids. Sometimes I put a deadline on some of their chores. You don't get it done by 6 o'clock tonight, you don't get money, or that treat, or that cake that mom really wants.
Yeah, that's great, Stella. Thank you. And we're about 3 minutes out. So, so kind of to follow up on that real quick, Bridget, you know, maybe those are exercises that start at the beginning of the year. Instead of saying, you know, this is due next week, build that into the timeline. Step 1 is due here. Step 2 is due here, and give them some autonomy to do that. I know as a parent, I often said, you know, I want this done, and I kind of want it done now. Whereas, you know, maybe a better way to teach that skill and develop that skill would have been to say, okay, here are the things that need to be done by the end of the week. I'd like to see your progress, rather than, you know, just that procrastination and doing them all at the end. But we're down to 2 minutes. So if I may, I'd like to get just a couple things out. You know what I did? I don't have my notes accessible. So can one of my team members, I have a link that takes you to a resource guide from DePaul University. And it's a terrific resource of mapping and visualizing exercises to help you identify soft skills for yourself and for your students. So if one of my teammates could grab that from the notes part of our presentation and drop that in chat, that'd be awesome.
I just put it in there, Carrie.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate that. The other thing I want to say is, in the few years that I've been working with Career Connected Learning, it's been a true education into the field of education. I've learned more about the work that you all do as teachers and administrators, and I just want to make sure that I say thank you. Yeah, from the bottom of my heart, because you know, I had a whole different outlook on it as a parent than I do now as a professional. And oftentimes, you know, here we're asking you to give your time. Hopefully we were able to provide you with you know, some meaningful information. But really, thank you all very much. And I want to, it looks like we've got one question coming in. I want to make sure that I answer that while also kind of thanking my team. Diane and Maria and Stella, you guys are awesome. You know, thank you very much. But did I miss a question? Did I see another hand come up? We're down to just the last minute or so. Actually, last few seconds, but I think we're good. So any final thoughts or feedback anybody wants to give? If not, you can start logging off. I know many of you have you know, other meetings or lunch to head to, but thanks so much.
I want to thank all of you teachers too. I think you guys are amazing. And thank you, Carrie, for putting this together for us.
No problem. I think Donna, you're welcome, Stella. I think Donna does have a question. Donna, do you want to jump in?
No, that was the old one.
Oh, Oh, it keeps
Thank
bouncing
you.
up. Okay,
You
all
guys,
right.
thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks
you,
everybody. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
I
you,
did want to
everyone.
share, if Bridget's still on, of something that I brought up is giving, so the backwards planning is a great way to start, but maybe in addition, you can set some deadlines for specific parts. That's something that if I have a big project too, I'll say I'll do a quarter of it by this day, and then give yourself a buffer day. So that might help also
Yes.
try to instill some more time management in them.
Yes. All right.
Perfect.
I like it. Thank you.
All right. Have a terrific day, everybody.